Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to I Care About You. Thanks for being here. I'm Juliana J, and today I'm going to talk about three life lessons that I have recently been working with, and I think they might help you. So I was writing about it in my journal today. Let me just open up. So, my three life lessons. The first one is to let go of fear. And I know this is so ridiculously hard to do. How do we let go of fear, especially when we've let it govern so much of what we do in our lives? I have a lot of fear around literally everything. And I think I learned that in my childhood with people in my life who were just fearful about everything. Like, if you pet the dog, you need to wash your hands because you might get sick, and cars are scary and everything's scary and you could die at any moment. And as a little kid, I really just picked all that up. Like, the world's a scary place, right? And so I brought that into my adult life without ever really giving it any thought as to if there was truth or not truth, or if I was getting that information from people who are maybe struggling with their own issues in life or their own paranoias or whatever. I just took it on as something that is true. And I never looked beyond that moment. But really, it wasn't serving me at all because I wasn't keeping it in the place that fear needs to be. Like, fear has its place. We need to be tapped on the shoulder when we're about to do something that might be extremely dangerous, or there's someone who is potentially harmful for us. We need that bit of intuition, that bit of tapping on the shoulder of, hey, wait, let's take a moment here. This might be something you want to rethink, or maybe it is dangerous. And if so, why are you pursuing this dangerous move? What might be behind it? So fear has its place. But when you blanket your entire life with fear, then it becomes a debilitating belief system. And it certainly was for me. I let so many things dictate what I did due to irrational fear. So that's what I'm talking about here. Irrational fear. Let go of your irrational fear. Let go of the fear of very simple things. Like, I used to be really afraid of driving because I felt like a car was going to kill me at any moment, and I'm getting in a death machine, and I don't know how to do it. I didn't feel good about my own self. I didn't feel good about my own ability to, oh, hi, there's a little dog down by my feet. Yeah. If you're watching the video, this is a little dog that was down by my feet. We have the same hair today. This is Sweet Jane. She was my foster dog maybe a year ago, if you all saw the little puppy, and now she's grown up into herself. Oh, she wants to play. So fear. I had fear of driving, fear of going on roller coasters, fear of, which I think I've talked about before in other podcasts. I was just so fearful of all kinds of rides at the fair or the boardwalk or any place that I was. I was just really fearful of that. I went skiing quite a few times as a kid because we lived next to ski resorts, and I was afraid I was going to die all the time. I could never really enjoy it because I was so fearful all the time. Maybe in the last 6 years, I learned how to surf, or I started to learn how to surf. And even though I've never really been fearful that much of the ocean, I just gathered up all this fear about all the things that could happen because someone close to me really lives in this fear bubble, and they like to bring up all the bad things that could happen whenever you're going to do anything. You say anything, even like, I'm going to repair my front door. You have to hear all the reasons why it's not going to work, what could happen. It just goes on and on with all this negative stuff about the fear around what could happen with any kind of change whatsoever. And a lot of people are really fearful of change. A lot of people, that's super common. And of course, why wouldn't you be? It's unknown, right? But it's irrational on a lot of levels. So let go of this irrational fear. It'll only keep you back. This irrational fear kept me from fun times with family and friends. It kept me from going places I wanted to go. It kept me from pursuing things I wanted to pursue because I was also afraid not to be an expert in everything. And I didn't pursue certain job avenues or certain things I really wanted to do because of the fear of judgment, what other people would think, fear of looking stupid, fear of having people talk negatively about me. The fear bubble that I lived in was huge. And then I kind of surrounded myself with some people who supported that fear. Like, yeah, the world is a bad place. You have to be on your guard all the time. If you're driving down the street, all the people in the cars are out to get you. If you want any kind of change in your life, all these negative things could happen. If you want to redo your bathroom, let's talk about all the negative things that could happen while you're doing that project. And I surrounded myself with people that only thought about that and never thought about, like, yeah, that would be cool, or yeah, let's do it, or let's try it. And a lot of fear around traveling. I surrounded myself with people who were super fearful about traveling. And that was one thing I really loved doing. And I stopped doing it because, oh yeah, it must be fear. It must be scary. And if you carry that through your life, you'll get to a point where all the times you let irrational fear win has the potential to become a regret very easily. And you don't want that to happen. So let go of irrational fear. And how can you let go of it? Recognize it when it comes up. For me, I trained myself to not be afraid of driving anymore by just every time I got in the car, I just took this centering moment to take a deep breath and then to go, it's irrational that I am worried about this. I've never been in an accident. I've driven all over. Nothing's ever happened. That's bad. I just knocked on wood and the dog went crazy. But I just stopped that pattern of thinking. I realized, like, why are you, like, I'd get in the car and I'd be sweating and shaking. And I just stopped and reflected on that. Why are you doing that? That's ridiculous. You're going like 3 miles down this road. Even if you got in an accident, you're not going fast enough for anything to happen. You've been all over everywhere. You've gone to foreign countries. If you can do that and survive, you can drive down the street or anywhere else. And I retrained my brain to let go of a lot of these irrational fears that were in my daily life, stopping me from doing stuff. Lots of irrational fears. Like, I am afraid that if I go out with coffee with somebody at lunch, I'm not going to make it back in time. So I better not go. It was just so ruling my life. And I became really constricted into this little box of things that were allowable to do because there was not a risk. But life is about taking risks, not necessarily going wild with it and putting yourself in actual danger, but allowing yourself to take risks, however small, even if it's something like, I'm going to risk ordering this thing at the restaurant that I've never ordered before. I'm going to take a risk driving to work in a different way. Or there's so many things that you can do that help your life not be so rigid and governed by fear, by taking small little risks, by recognizing when you're going to a well-worn pattern that's no longer serving you, and rewiring your brain to think something else. Affirmations are also really good with this if you keep up and use them every day. As far as the driving situation went for me, I just started saying, I am a good driver. I know what I'm doing. I can get from one place to another and nothing will happen. I was also afraid that the car would break down at any moment because, again, I had surrounded myself with somebody who thought all cars could break down at any moment and leave you anywhere. And certainly cars have done that to me in the past, only a couple of times, but that's par for the course when you have a car. It is going to need service at some point. So, but I had blown it into this huge thing of like, cars are going to let me down. It's going to stop on the freeway and everybody's going to wreck into me and it's going to be havoc and it's all going to be my fault. I just blew it out of proportion. So recognizing when you're letting irrational fear go out of control and then reining it back in and retraining your brain to think something different about that, to think it's okay to take these small risks. It's okay to be a newbie. It's okay to do things that out in the world that maybe aren't 100% infallible, sure that nothing's going to happen to you. Break out of it. If you're really fearful about talking to people or saying hello or making eye contact or fear-based, then you can retrain yourself by just saying hi, stepping out of that comfort zone, taking that small risk of saying hi. What could happen? Maybe they don't like it. That's it. So that is my number one life lesson is don't let your life be dictated by irrational fear. In your grown-up mind, assess your fear that you've cultivated since childhood and decide if that is or is not some fear, legitimate fear you need to bring forward now that you're an adult. Of course, when you're a child, going somewhere by yourself has a huge risk. And you can be afraid of that as a 5-year-old child. But as a 30-year-old adult, is that really serving you anymore? Maybe you can go somewhere by yourself. So let go of all these irrational fears and fears that aren't serving you and take small risks. Train your brain. The second one is to let go of being extremely pessimistic. Now, again, pessimism has its place, scrutiny has its place, but it doesn't have to be a blanket method for how you live your life. Some people become so pessimistic just because they are worried about the anxiety or the image of what if they're positive about getting this job and then they don't get it? What's going to happen then? That'll be embarrassing. So I better be pessimistic about it. And then if I get the job, that's great. But if I don't get the job, I said I wouldn't. So it's not as embarrassing. And that's just ridiculous. For one, you're putting all the energy out there that everything's negative, and you're creating a reality for yourself where everyone's out to get you, nothing's going to go your way, and everything sucks. And why would you want to live in that space? It might be safe. It might be safe to never get your hopes up. It might be safe to never be excited about something. It might be safe to never dream, but what kind of space is that? And do you want to be there? I've said this on many podcasts. It's all about balance. Right now in the world, a lot of people are feeling, myself included, whenever I look at the news, I'm just devastated. You could either stay there and apply that everywhere. If you're not enjoying your job, you can stay in the job and then apply what you don't like about it to everything else in your life. Or you can make the change to a new job. You can decide you're not going to give it that much energy anymore. And you can realize that just because that one part of your life is a little bit challenging right now, it doesn't mean everything else is also in that same box. Find balance to appreciate what's good, what's great about the world, what's beautiful about the world, what's amazing about the world. And nature is a really good, easy way to do that if you're having a hard time getting out of a pessimistic mindset. Just spending some time in nature and really marveling, especially in the spring, which it's starting to happen here where I live, to just go out and marvel at nature, at the flowers that are starting to come up everywhere, at the leaves that are popping out, at all the beautiful colors that there are, at just how incredible that tree out my window is probably 400 years old. Whoa. Just finding some reverence and awe and amazement in nature can help you to balance that pessimistic attitude. It doesn't mean you go out in nature and you look at something and you say, wow, that tree's 400 years old, but because of climate change, it's going to die in a year or so. You don't have to take everything into a pessimistic space. And when you feel yourself, again, this is about rewiring your brain, right? When you feel yourself going to those pessimistic places, you can recognize it and shift it. Even if it's to yourself, like you apply for a job, you get an interview and you think to yourself, I won't get this. Stop. Because for one, you're creating self-fulfilling prophecy and all the energy is going towards this negative space. You want to say, they called me for an interview. I must be valid. So I can get this. I can get this job. And if I don't get this job, there's a better job coming for me. And that's okay. It's about finding space where when things happen that you don't want, you can find space for it to be okay nonetheless, because that's life. It's not all amazing. It's not all incredible and a bowl of cherries. Sometimes things we don't like happen, and it's how we choose to work through those challenging times is really what we take away from that. Like some people will think a challenging time was a valuable lesson. Some people will think that challenging time brought them to something even more amazing that they didn't know was there. And some people take a challenging time as a reason why the world is so horrible and they suck as a person. So it's about changing your mindset with things around you that aren't going well or aren't what you like. And it's also about giving yourself the space to imagine what good could happen instead of immediately thinking, yeah, I got this new car, but I've paid too much and it's probably going to break down. Shift it, shift that. Wow, I bought this new car. I have a car. Everybody, I have a car. That you can shift so easily and you can see it in yourself. You can really recognize when things are pessimistic. And I know sometimes I see people be pessimistic and someone will bring up that they're being pessimistic and they'll make an excuse for it. Well, you need to look at that. Well, you need to take into account what might happen. Stop yourself from justifying your pessimistic behavior. Stop it. Stop it. Pessimistic behavior is not troubleshooting what can go wrong. That's different. That's going like, okay, I'm going to approach this project. What could go right and what could go wrong? And if something goes in a way that I don't like, how can I reroute it back? And realizing that I'm taking on this project, it's not going to go perfect because that's the nature of projects. And when it doesn't go perfect, I reevaluate and figure it out. Don't give energy to all the what could go wrongs. Troubleshooting is different from being pessimistic. And if you, every time anyone says anything to you, if the first thing out of your mouth is something that could go wrong, analyze if you're being pessimistic, because you probably are. And you can stop that. When somebody tells you something that they're doing, something exciting in their life, try to approach it with positivity, unless they're telling you something that's dire and grave and they need some other kind of interaction from you. But learn to read that and know what that is. And even if somebody comes to you with grave news, you don't have to approach it with pessimism either. You don't have to be toxic positivity. I did a podcast on that. You can check it out if you want to know what that is. You don't have to approach it with toxic positivity, but approach it with grace and understanding. You don't have to approach it with pessimism either. And recognize that pessimism isn't troubleshooting. It isn't working out all the avenues of what could happen. Because if you're just being pessimistic, you aren't looking at the other side. So balance that out for yourself, retrain your brain to think differently. And if you see something that really makes you feel dire, or you're involved in something that's really making you feel dire, or you're in dark times right now, try to balance that with other things out there. Don't just sit with that unhappy thing or that negative thing or that thing that you're finding so hard to be with. Don't sit with that devastation 24/7. Some people will even set a timer for a half an hour. I'm going to be really upset about this. And when the timer goes off, I'm going to switch gears. Because if you stay in the place of being really, really upset about something, you won't do anything to create change. You'll just sit there, and then that will become your reality, this negative viewpoint of the world. So being able to step out of that allows you to create some change, however that may be, however big or small that might be. That's why I'm fostering a dog right now. It's not here at the moment, but that's why I'm fostering a dog right now, because wow, the world is pretty harsh. What can I do to bring some love into the world? And so I'm fostering this little dog. And it's just working with that. Instead of being the world's so horrible and everything's crashing down, there are some good things. There are always some good things, even when your life is at the absolute worst place it could possibly be. There is still something beautiful out there. So find balance. And my last, number 3, life lesson for me, to start living life for yourself. I don't mean being selfish or conceited or having a super big ego or any of that stuff. I don't mean you can't be all about someone else when they need you to. I'm talking about letting go of yourself to please others. And there's a little bit of a give and take in that, but some of us go really crazy with it. And I used to be one of them until just recently. I've done a lot of work on this people pleasing thing, but some of us will lose ourselves so deeply in trying to help other people that we lose ourselves in the mix. I certainly felt this when I was in my abusive relationship for 10 years. Everything I did was to try to keep that person functional and to try to keep up the facade of everything was okay. Everything I did, everything. And I I got substandard jobs so that person would feel okay about the job they had. So they would always feel like they were on top and they were amazing. I dumbed down myself extremely just to placate that person. And when that relationship ended, I realized I didn't know who I was at all. I didn't know what I liked, what I didn't like. I mean, everything. I talk about it in my book, Reasons to Live. I talk about this in that I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't even know what kind of coffee I liked. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I had to find out who I was. And that was simply due to not living for myself. I mean, if I was living for myself, I wouldn't even have been in that relationship. I was living for somebody else and trying to help somebody else. And I was also living to try and make other people proud of me or to get some sort of kudos or some sort of, yes, you're okay. I never looked for any of that stuff within myself. I never looked for, I'm enough within inside myself. I never looked for, I matter. I'm lovable. I'm kind. I'm a good person. I'm amazing. I can go places. I'm smart. I never looked for any of that stuff within inside of myself. I was always looking out in the world for confirmation about those things. And even if I got confirmation, I didn't pick it up. I was like, okay, that one person likes me, but these other people don't like me, which means I'm not good enough. We often use that being selfless or not putting ourselves first in order to just reinforce all this negative self-talk we have about not being worthy, not being good enough, not being smart, whatever it is. We use it to reinforce the negative self-talk. And we don't put ourselves first because the negative self-talk is not putting ourselves first. It's not living for ourselves. You can still be in relationships and be kind and compassionate towards them and sacrifice things at times in relationships, but you don't have to lose your authenticity. You don't have to lose who you are in that framework. And yes, that is a bit of an art. It is a dance form. It is something people have to work on and recognize and shift when they need to. It is very, very important. It's a lifelong thing that you'll do, putting yourself first when you need to. It could be something simple as I'm going to go take a bath and I don't want anyone to disturb me, so I'm not taking my phone or doing anything like that. To find those times for yourself, for your own self-care, to be able to opt out of screens or opt out of technology for a couple hours if you need to take a weekend off. I don't look at my email on the weekends regardless, because of just trying to have this space for myself where I'm not pleasing everybody. If somebody's going to email me about work on the weekends and they can wait till I'm at work. Living life for yourself is also about whatever boundaries you might put into place, like that being one of them. I don't look at my work email on the weekends. Finding what those things are and ways you can put yourself first when you need to, when you can live life for yourself. I kind of illustrated this one thing that you could do, which is kind of a positive rampage about yourself, where you can set a timer for 3 minutes or 5 minutes and just say all the amazing things about yourself, or write down all the amazing things about yourself. But it can be like, I am lovable, I am kind, I am gracious, I am thoughtful, I am a good driver, I am good at what I do, I am strategic as a thinker, I am super creative, I do make these amazing things. It can be very small to very large, like I am good at writing down things, I am good at list taking, I am good at being on time, to big things. Like, I am smart enough. I am valid. I am worthy. I do matter. I love myself, which those things should always be in your rampage, and you should be working with those daily in your daily journaling, or also if you use affirmations, those should always be part of your affirmations, a core. I love myself. I am worthy. I matter. I am enough. So those are my 3 life lessons that I think are super, super huge. I feel like really impacted my life over the first whole half of my life, really impacted me. I did so many things that were not even authentic to me, very small to very large, just trying to please people, living in my bubble of fear and never putting myself first and thinking the worst is always going to happen. So let go of the irrational fear. Stop being so pessimistic and put yourself first, not as an egotistical way, but as a way of constantly being authentic to who you are. So there you are, my dear friends. Please share this podcast with somebody who might need to hear it. Again, please order my book if you need more help in learning how to love and care for yourself and love and care for others. Reasons to Live. And please like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what your life lessons are. What do you think you've learned that's really helped you in life? It won't just be something I can hear about and possibly do a podcast on, but you can really help others. And here we are, a community. Let us know, what do you think your big life lessons are? And how did you go about shifting? So take good care, my friends. Know that I love you and I support you and I care about you, and you are enough. You are enough.